Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Okay, so this morning we have Isabella Drzala presenting on Alzheimer's disease. Do you have any announcements? No. Okay, so enjoy.
Hi, okay, so I'm presenting on the antibody aducanumab that reduces A-beta plaques in Alzheimer's disease. In simpler terms, this new antibody slows the development of Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's disease is the sixth largest cause of death in the United States. It kills more than breast cancer and prostate cancer combined. 1 in 3 people aged 65 or older will die with Alzheimer's or another form of dementia. Now, what is Alzheimer's? Alzheimer's is the progressive death of brain cells that lead to severe memory loss and cognitive decline. So in the picture of, the normal brain, you have, the normal brain. And then in the picture of a brain with Alzheimer's, you have a degraded brain. And Alzheimer's is constituted mainly of plaques and tangles. Plaques are made up of toxic A-beta proteins, and tangles are collections of twisted protein threads found inside nerve cells. Both are made from misfolded proteins, so this in turn means that there was some genetic mutation that occurred. Shout out to Mrs. O'Meara and Dr. Kirkhart for teaching me all about those. And although plaques and tangles are both pertinent to Alzheimer's disease, I'll be focusing more on plaques and how aducanumab targets those plaques. Aducanumab slows the growth of plaques. Many drugs have been looking to slow the growth of plaques, but so far aducanumab is really the only successful one, as far as I'm aware. It is still unknown whether the plaques are the cause or effect of Alzheimer's, but they still contribute to memory loss. How does aducanumab function? This figure is a picture of aducanumab binding to the A-beta proteins inside of the brain, and it is from a dead human brain tissue. And each purple spot, so like this, like that would be where the aducanumab bound to the A-beta protein. And after they bind, the immune system is alerted and it sends up cells to break up the clumps and flush them out of the brain. And it's important to remember that although the plaques are being disposed of, they are also growing back at a rapid rate, so they're not being completely reduced from the brain. And that would be why aducanumab is not a complete cure for Alzheimer's. Is a reduction of plaques dose dependent? In this figure, you have a P80 scan from 4 different brains. In the first brain, there's the placebo, which would mean that the person was not treated with Alzheimer's. Just to clarify, it's from a human brain. So in the first brain, the red signifies the highest amount of plaque. So here you have the baseline, and then you have the brain after 1 year, and you can see how there really wasn't that much change. And if anything, there's actually more red after 1 year than there was in the initial baseline week. The brain treated with 3 milligrams of aducanumab, you can see how the red starts to decrease. Although it doesn't totally decrease, it still decreases by a lot. And for the most part, and there's still some yellow left, which would mean that it's not completely gone. Yes?
What period of time has passed between these
1
different
year.
scans?
1 year.
1 year?
And then in the brain treated with 6 milligrams of aducanumab, you can see how the red goes down even more, and the yellow does too. And in the brain treated with 10 milligrams of aducanumab, you can see how there is more red actually in the baseline brain, in the baseline week of the brain, or when it was first tested. And then after being treated with 10 milligrams for 1 year, it really decreases. This graph is a statistical representation of data from the P80 scan from before. So in the baseline week, you can see how the amount of plaque is really much the same. After 26 weeks, as the dosages increase from no treatment to 10 milligrams of aducanumab, you can see how as the dosages increase, the amount of plaques decrease. And in week 54, you can see how, for example, the brain treated 10 milligrams of aducanumab, it's really gone down. How does aducanumab work to decrease the... this is a quick quiz for you guys to make sure you guys have understood it. How does aducanumab work to decrease the amount of plaques?
It binds to plaques and attracts, immune organelles or immune cells to break up those protein plaques.
Yeah, pretty much. So it just binds to it, then the immune system is, alerted, and it would send up cells to break the clumps up and get them out of the brain. Now, effects on cognitive ability. Before I start with these two graphs, CDR is a clinical dementia rating, and it will be used mainly for this graph. MMSE is the mini mental state exam, and it will be used for this graph. And the orange line in this graph signifies the people not treated with aducanumab. The blue line signifies people treated with aducanumab. And you can really see that, after 26 weeks, the orange line, it continuously increases, and then in week 54, it also goes up. So it's really just going up in a linear fashion. From baseline week to week 26 in the blue line, you can see how although it goes up, it doesn't go up as much as the orange line. Yeah.
Can you just clarify one more time, what is it that's going up?
The clinical dementia rating. So as the ratings go up, their dementia gets worse. So the blue line, for the people treated with aducanumab, their clinical dementia rating goes up a little bit, but it doesn't go up as much as the people treated without it. And then by week 54, the drug is able to plateau down. And in the graph this graph, the orange line once again signifies the people not treated with aducanumab, and the blue line signifies people treated with aducanumab. And in this graph, it's actually the opposite of this one. So as the score decreases, it's actually worse for their mental state. So in this graph, you can see how the orange line, it continuously decreases and their mental state deteriorates. In the blue line, their mental state initially drops a little bit, but then it actually goes back up, which is really good for their mental state. And it's really important to remember that these graphs were not the primary focus of the study. Further tests would have to be conducted to really determine the mental state and dementia. Any questions? Yeah.
So for the second graph to the right, why would the mini mental state exam go down after the first? Why do you think that would happen? Because from the data that you presented before, it shows that the drug continuously decreased the amount of plaque. So why do you think that would?
Because although the plaques are being decreased, they're not completely disappearing from the brain. And if I go back to this graph, or even this one, actually no, this one's better. So let's take the brain treated with 3 milligrams, for example. It doesn't go down, to here by week 26, so there's still, a lot of plaques left in the brain. Yeah, so in this one, you can see how it doesn't go down completely. So, it doesn't go up, it still goes down because there are still plaques left in the brain. Yeah.
What dosage is this tested in?
I actually don't know. So, sorry. Yeah.
The people who were given the drug in these two graphs, did they already have Alzheimer's and dementia, or?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
So then, if they already had it, why did they start? Why is the first square in both of them at 0?
Oh, because it's a
it's a
gene
gene
change.
Got it.
Okay. Any more questions? Okay, good. Now, aducanumab in different areas of the brain. So these tests were from the brains of mice, and 60-10 is the indicator of A beta protein, and Thais is the total amount of plaque. So you can see how the thios and 6E10, as the dosages increase, for the most part actually, the amount of 6E10 in thios goes down in both regions of the brain. Yeah, so from placebo to 30 milligrams. If you were to draw a regression line, it would go down. How does aducanumab affect the brain and its cognitive abilities? Yeah.
I think it stops the progression, doesn't necessarily
Yeah.
of the worsening of
Mhm.
dementia or mental state.
Now, designing the drug. In this dot plot test, you can see how aducanumab bound to the oligomer and the fibril, but it did not bind to the monomer. And the 3D6, wait, where'd it go? Okay, it died. The 3D6 here is the parent, it's the precursor drug of aducanumab, which means that aducanumab was designed to be very similar to 3D6. Oh, and both of these strains of the drugs were mice versions, they weren't human. Yeah.
Do you explain the vocab here for those who don't know?
Which one?
Monomer, oligomer, polymer.
Yeah, okay. I forgot it.
Okay.
Okay. Oh wait, monomer I think is single-stranded, oligomer is poly or many strands, and then, yeah. Okay, so 3D6 bound to the monomer, oligomer, and fibril, and I said that before, but aducanumab did not bind to the monomer, which to scientists means that they have to be very careful when designing the drug because they have to find the correct binding site. Otherwise, it would probably be not as effective.
What are these monomer, oligomer, and fibrils of?
Mice brain.
What is aducanumab binding to?
Oh, it's binding to the oligomer and the fibril.
Of what?
Mm.
What does it bind to? You know what it binds to.
Mouse brain. There's something in the mouse brain. Oh, plaque. Yeah, it's the monomer and oligomer and fibril of the plaque. So that answers your question too. And this is for you guys to discuss. What impact do you think that aducanumab will have on research for treatment for Alzheimer's? Yeah, Hannah.
Well, it depends how much better this drug is compared to the previous standard of care. So I don't know if it's more effective than before. But if it is, then change what they try to attack.
Yeah, so as I said before, aducanumab compared to other drugs, they've all been looking to slow down the growth of plaques, but not that many of them have been successful in that. So really, as far as I'm aware, aducanumab is it's really the only drug that has slowed down the growth of plaques. But it's important to remember that it's not a cure. Yeah.
Do you know what the current treatment is for Alzheimer's?
Well, there is no cure for it, so I'm not aware of the current treatment. Yeah.
Is this like an FDA approved drug, or is it just something in testing?
No.
Okay. And then also, I think it's cool because you hear about immunotherapy a lot in regards to cancer, you're going to trigger your immune system to fight back, and this is another way of using immunotherapy, but in something different than cancer. So it's cool to see how science kind of all overlaps.
Yeah.
So they did the study in people, right?
Yeah, it was actually done in people and mice, so I'll just clarify which tests were done on people. This one was done on mice. This one was also done on mice. This one was done on people, and you can see, actually, I'll just point that out in the other one. This one was done on people, and you can actually see that n equals 34. Those are the amount of people participating in the test. So you have n equals 34 for placebo, no treatment. N equals 34 again. N equals 30, which would mean that people actually dropped out of the trial, And that would just be because of their own choice, not necessarily because of anything else. Yeah.
Do you know if the people that were tested had a severe amount of Alzheimer's, or if it was like different levels, or like a smaller?
So they all had different levels, and I mean they didn't really clear. Like take this one for example. You can obviously see that like the brain, well, the person with this brain had higher amounts of plaques than, I don't know, say this person, which would kind of explain as to why after 1 year of being treated with 10 milligrams, I mean, for the most part, these two kind of look the same, except for this one is a bit more red, but it kind of balances out because you can see how much more plaque this brain has compared to this one. So they all did have different, I guess, types of, well, not types, but like severity. Yeah.
Is aducanumab naturally occurring?
Yeah, it is.
So are there any side effects to increasing the amount of aducanumab?
I mean, I don't know the side effects that could occur, but I do know that there were side effects. The article didn't clarify on it. Yeah.
So does the formation of plaque kind of, is it irreversible? Because as we saw, the plaque went away, but you said the mental decline kind of stayed the same. So does that imply that like once you get the plaque, you can't really like return to your previous state?
I guess so for the most part, because because that's why when Alzheimer's doesn't really have a cure right now, because otherwise they'd just be able to get rid of the plaque from the brain, and they can't seem to do that. Yeah.
So then, if you're like, this shows that clearly it is like reducing the amount of plaque. So if this was like used as a drug, you'd have to continuously take it
Yeah.
for the rest of your life.
Probably. Yeah, because it's also increasing too. Because it's just old age, so the amount of plaques would be increasing. So you'd have to use the drug to continuously decrease it. Yeah.
How late in the actual progression of Alzheimer's disease drug allows given to patients?
Wait, could you repeat that? I didn't really hear you.
How late, like in the progression of Alzheimer's disease drug able to be given to patients? In this study, these were mostly very early stage Alzheimer's patients. They didn't test how late it would be effective.
Okay, anyone else? Alright. In conclusion, although aducanumab is not a cure for Alzheimer's disease, it does delay the accumulation of plaques and keeps severe side effects such as dementia at bay. And for future research, it's important to remember that aducanumab is really just like a cool drug because it reduces the amount of plaques. And really, as I said before, no other drugs, as far as I'm aware, have succeeded in decreasing the amount of plaques. And this article is kind of great because it was published really recently, actually in 2016, so it's just the beginning of finding a cure for Alzheimer's. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Oh, sure.
Should I go here?
Yeah, so next week we have Ethan presenting on brain methylation and its connection to the digestive system. It'll be really interesting. Come on down.